Good morning and welcome to Discovery Class. Our teacher, Ron Kernahan, and his wife, Mary, are on holidays. They are going to be away for a few weeks and have asked me to fill in for them. My name is Wilf Kazmaier. Let's start with a word of prayer before we begin. Father in heaven, we look forward to hearing from your word. And we understand that you have promised that your word would not return to you empty, but would bear fruit. And so we ask that it would bear fruit in our lives today as we listen to what you have to say to us. Amen. So we're just come to the end of the Winter Olympics in 2026. Did you watch some of it? There were sure a lot of events. Different people like to see different events. I was speaking to one person, and they were saying that they were watching the pair skating. They loved the way that the men were able to hold those women up on top of their hand with a single hand and do all their spins and moves. Quite amazing. I had another friend who likes curling and was saying it was just wonderful the way these people could play and curl, do some amazing shots, clear out 3 rocks with a single throw. As for me, I watched the men's hockey games. I like hockey, but don't follow it regularly. I find that there are too many games in a season. For me, I have too little time to watch all those games. But this time around, I watched every one of the Canadian team men's hockey games. It caught my interest, and here's why. The number 1 line on the Canadian men's team had 3 of the best hockey players of the world. The line consisted of Sidney Crosby from the Pittsburgh Penguins, Connor McDavid from the Edmonton Oilers, and Macklin Celebrini from the San Jose Sharks. Normally they all play on different teams, but here was a chance to see the world's best hockey players not only on the same team, but even on the same line. And they didn't disappoint. Every time they were on the ice, it was like magic. Now, Sidney Crosby was injured in the quarterfinal game against Chechnya, and he missed the semifinal and final games. Perhaps that led in part to Canada's loss to the U.S. in the final game, which was won by the U.S. in overtime. So we did get the silver medal. So much for hockey. But while I was watching these players, I was reminded how life goes through definite stages. Now, for most of us, if we live long enough, we go through these stages in perhaps 70 or 90 years. But hockey players, this happens much faster. Macklin Celebrini is a young player. At 19, he was the youngest player on the Canadian team. He has already won many awards when he was playing junior and was selected first overall in the NHL draft at the age of 17. Even in his youthful years, he's already a superstar and probably has a great career ahead of him. Then there's Connor McDavid. At age 29, McDavid is in the prime of his hockey career. He's got good health and experience, which makes him one of the best players in the world. You probably see the many times he's on TV, on a commercial, and he's getting the big contracts at this time. And then there's Sidney Crosby. They call him Sid the Kid, but he's not a kid anymore. He's got gray hair, or starting to get gray hair at 38. He was playing very well. He's still a top scorer, perhaps not as good as he was in his younger years. But the media is always speculating if he has aged out of his prime. Isn't that an interesting phrase, to age out of your prime? How many of us have aged out of our prime? Now, there was another stage in life that was on display during those hockey games. Up in the stands was Wayne Gretzky. And Wayne is now, I think, 65 years old. They didn't ask Wayne to strap on the skates to play for the team. He's past that. He's known as the Great One and was great when he was playing. He played professional hockey for 21 years, but he's been retired for 27 years. And there's an interesting fact. Some of us, many of us, will be retired for much longer than the years that we are in our work lives, in our professional life. Wayne Gretzky was the Great One when he was playing hockey. But I wonder, is he the Great One at the old folks' home with the retired crowd? Is he a success at retirement like he was at playing the game? Interesting about Sidney Crosby. Why did they pick him for the team, even though he's slower than perhaps some of the younger players in the league? Well, they said that he brings much more to the game than just his skating and scoring ability. You see, the game isn't always won during the time that they are on the ice, but it's often also won by what happens in the locker room between the periods. And Crosby is known to be a leader. That's why they made him captain. We don't get to see this, but I'm told that he's always talking to the younger players and encouraging them to do their best. He might say things like, "Don't panic, we still can win this game. And above all, don't take any stupid penalties," which young folks tend to do, and that can cost them a game. You see, there is wisdom and experience that may be the key to success as well. The Bible recognizes that life goes through stages, and it has different advice, specific advice to those who are young, to those who are in their middle age, and to those who are now older. You can find these passages throughout the Bible. For example, in the book of Proverbs, it begins with a father speaking words of wisdom to his son. And it ends with a description of a wife of noble character, specific instructions to women. And in between, there's lots of passages for people in between in their ages as well. Now, I'd like to look at one of the passages of the Bible that talks to people in these different stages. It's from Titus 2, verses 1 through 10. In Titus, the Apostle Paul is writing to Titus, his young protege, who is in charge of the church, which they felt was in Crete at the time. And so he gives them advice to teach what is appropriate to sound doctrine. Let me read the first 8 verses of that passage for you, and you'll get the sense of what Paul says. It begins, "You, however, must teach what is appropriate to sound doctrine. Teach the older men to be temperate, worthy of respect, self-controlled, and sound in faith, in love, and in endurance. Likewise, teach the older women to be reverent in the way they live, not to be slanderers or addicted to much wine, but to teach what is good. Then they can urge the younger women to love their husbands and children, to be self-controlled, pure, to be busy at home, to be kind, to be subject to their husband, so that no one will malign the word of God. And similarly, encourage the young men to be self-controlled. In everything, he says to Titus, a young man, set them an example by doing what is good. In your teaching, show integrity, seriousness, and soundness of speech that cannot be condemned, so that those who oppose you may be ashamed, because they have nothing bad to say about us. Now, there's advice to 4 different groups of people here. There's a couple of things in common. One thing in common is every group is encouraged to be self-controlled. That seems to be important at all stages of life. It also talks about teaching. Look at the phrases in there. Teach the older men too. Teach the older women too. Urge the younger women to. Encourage young men to. There's advice for every stage, but notice that every stage needs to be taught. Even Titus is the one who's charged with doing much of that teaching. Now, at this stage, I've got myself into a bit of a bind. It would be useful now to say, okay, we'll stop here. And there are now 4 links at the bottom of this YouTube, one for each of the stages that you find yourself. And you would pick the stage that fits you and get that specific advice for you. Well, I'm not going to do that. I have a different plan. Instead, I'm going to give you some homework. Now that I am quite seriously in the older man stage, I've started going through my Bible and collecting Bible verses that speak specifically to the older men. Older men, be temperate, worthy of respect, self-controlled, and sound in faith, in love, and in endurance. And so I am studying those because they fit my circumstance. I collect these verses, and I've even started memorizing them, and I'll put them under the title, Finish Well. I'm in that stage where I want to be a success at being an older man, and the Bible speaks to that. You can do the same. What stage are you at? Find the verses that apply to you. If you're a younger man, look at the verses that speak to younger men. Look at the examples in Scripture about younger men. If you're in the middle age and in a career, what does the Bible say about that? So do some homework and collect your own verses that fit. And go back to Titus and think about the verse that speaks to you. One of my favorite verses that I found that speaks to myself, it's in my Finish Well category, is Psalm 71, 17 to 18. Here's what it says. Since my youth, O God, you have taught me, and to this day I declare your marvelous deeds. Even when I am old and gray, do not forsake me, my God, till I declare your power to the next generation, your mighty acts to all who are to come. Remember, Sidney Crosby was important to Team Canada because he could teach the younger players how to win. And so the Bible charges us, who are old and gray, to declare to the next generation about God's marvelous deeds. In Titus, we see this even in the passage of older women. Yes, older women are to live an exemplary life, to be self-controlled. That's still part of the program. And if they live an exemplary life, then they are to urge the younger women to love their husbands and children, to be self-controlled and pure, to be busy at home, to be kind, etc. So it is the task of those who are older to help those that are younger. Here's some more homework for you. If you're in that category, where is your opportunity to help those who are younger? Where's your opportunity to declare to them God's mighty powers? There's lots of chances. If your daughter or daughter-in-law is still in town and your family is still there, there's a chance for you perhaps to give them a break by taking care of the grandkids for a day. And what about all those recipes that you learned? How valuable to pass those on to your children and so that your grandchildren can benefit from them. And there's probably an opportunity where they will come to you for some advice, or maybe just a chance to have somebody to talk to who is not judgmental, who's just there to listen. One of the tasks of those of us who are older is to speak into the lives of those who are younger. Now, I have an illustration of this that I wanted to share with you. It comes out of my own life. I was born in Germany in 1953. And at that time, Germany was in ruins. And West Germany was filled with millions of refugees from Eastern Europe. It was impossible to find housing for young families. My parents, who were newly married, had 2 children, myself at 3 and my brother at 5. And in 1956, they decided to leave Germany and emigrate to Canada. Many people did. Now, this broke my grandfather's heart. He came up to my dad and said, "How can you do such a thing? You're going to take my grandchildren away from me, right across to the other side of the world to some horrible wilderness. I'll never see them again. It'll be years, decades." Because back then, you had to cross an ocean if you wanted to get back. I can now imagine how hard that must be, having my own grandkids aged 2 and 4. But we went anyway. And then when I was 16 years old, the world had changed. The jet age had arrived. So it was possible to fly from Calgary to Germany on a 707 in just 9 hours, and it was affordable. And that's what I did. During my summer holidays, I took a 4-week trip to Germany to meet my relatives. I finally had a chance to meet my grandfather. Now, my grandfather was a very committed Christian, and he was happy to see that I too had made a commitment just around that time to follow Christ. So we went to church together, and we read the Bible together. When I was about to leave, he wanted to give me a present. And what he gave me is this Bible. It's a German Bible that I cherish even to today. And he wrote something in the front flyleaf. Now, he thought about it for a week. I'd ask him, "Have you got that Bible? I want to pack." "No, I'm still thinking what I'm going to write in it." He called me Wolfgang because that was my name before they changed it when I came to Canada. They now call me Wilfred. And here's what he wrote in the front. He wrote it in German, but I'll give you the translation. "To my beloved Wolfgang, as a lasting blessing." Ecclesiastes 12, verse 1. Very short. Well, I looked up Ecclesiastes 12, verse 1, and here's what it says. "Remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before the days of trouble come, and the years approach when you will say, 'I find no pleasure in them.'" Well, at first I was a bit disappointed. I thought it would be a more encouraging verse that would be upbeat. And it's even worse if you read the rest of the passage in Ecclesiastes where it comes from. It's a whole section that describes the challenges of old age. When your teeth start to fall out, when your eyesight and your hearing begins to fail, when you get the shakes and you stop and you walk stooped over. Can you imagine a birthday card with this as the inscription? Happy birthday to you. Enjoy this day, because very soon you will have birthdays that will not be much fun at all. Obviously, Hallmark Cards was not going to hire my grandfather to make their greeting cards. But over the years, I've seen the wisdom of his advice. What is the best thing you could do to advise a young man? Is it not that he should go and know his Creator, get to know him when he's young? Don't wait. Matthew speaks to the same thing. It encourages all of us to enter through the narrow gate. For wide is the gate, and narrow is the road that leads to life, but few find it. Wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction. I read that wrong, didn't I? And many enter it, but small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life. Only a few find it. Seek to enter by that narrow gate. As a young man, as a young gal, there are a lot of people inviting you to take the wide road. Take a different road. Take the narrow road. Remember the Creator in the days of your youth, because that will lead to life. Well, that was pretty good life. That's advice for me that I've kept in mind. So last week, I was talking to a friend of mine, Mark. Mark's been a lifelong friend. We grew up together in that same German church that I went to. And I mentioned to him about the verse that my grandfather had given me. Well, Mark immediately said the following: Vertraue auf Jehova mit deinem ganzen Herzen und stütze dich nicht auf deinem Verstand. Erkenne ihn auf allen deinen Wegen und wird gerade machen deine Fehde. I was kind of surprised. Right out of the blue, he quotes this verse verbatim in the German. I'll give you the translation. It's Proverbs 3, verse 5. You may know it. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on our understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. Isn't that interesting that my grandfather's greatest gift to me was both a Bible and a verse to follow? And here was Mark, who also was gifted by his grandfather with a verse which told him to follow the Lord. Made a difference in my life, made a difference, I think, in Mark's life. What about your grandkids? What about your children? Is there some advice that you can give them that they will remember many years later, even when you're gone? You may have a chance to do that. Perhaps the next time you're writing a birthday card. Or just one of those occasions when you're sitting at home having coffee and cake and the topic comes up. I would encourage you to make a difference in the next generation. Pass on to them the truths of the Bible. We are charged to do that. We are supposed to do that. Have a look this week whether you don't have a chance to do that for the young folks in your life. Thanks for joining me here today. I'll see you again next week, hopefully, back at Bible Discovery class. God bless you.